In this quick guide, we're gonna see how we can export a model with texture and material and create a material in Unity, a model made in Zbrush. So creating surfaces with sculpting and painting tools. So you can see here we are inside Unity, which is an interactive, an application to create interactive uh, applications like video games and things like that. So we can get our models and props from other software and we can bring it into Unity to create like level design. So you need to download, install Unity, and then you can just create a sample scene. So you can start here. This is the launcher that you're gonna download and install. And if you create a new project, go to sample. In this case, I'm using this one here, which is like a really simple scene just to test the import process. And this one here is the model in Zbrush. So I created this model in the Zbrush video course just to show some of the features that you have in Zbrush, like Zsketch and other stuff. Now, when it comes to export, I think one of the most important thing is to have subdivisions, because if you have subdivisions, you can decide whether you want to export in a high poly fashion or low poly. So you can essentially manage the resolution, so the polygons. And this is important because in some applications you can use like really high number of polygons. In others you don't. So if you see there, if you roll over a subtool, you can see the actual number of polygons. So this one here is like 150,000, and there you go. And this is just the second level of subdivisions. You can get to 6 level subdivisions, and you can go further actually in Zbrush. So these are really heavy objects. Now you can export by clicking the export in the export tool, and you can export in OBJ and FBX. So if you want to export just the 3D model, that's all you need to do. Just select the subtool, click on export, select the format, and that's it. But usually we want to have like also the painting information, which is like for having more details. And you can have like standard diffuse channel for details, or you can also have displacement map, normal map. But you can see here, if I go in the texture map, nothing is in there, because before we can actually have some texture to be exported from Zbrush, we need to have mapping. So we need the 3D model, we need a UV map, we can do Unwrap mapping here, and then we need to paint to get the materials. So I can also paint here. If I activate the material RGB, I can paint with my brush in ZBrush on the model. And again, everything is explained perfectly in the ZBrush video course, so I'm just going quick here. And once you do that, if you want to export, you need to bake essentially this in a UV map. So you need to unwrap. But be careful, because when you unwrap, you need to go back to level 1. So this is why it's important to have levels, so you can go low when you need it and also go back to the high resolution again when it's necessary. So I am back to the first level of subdivision here, and this is the one that I'm gonna use to unwrap. So one level right there. And also don't worry about the details that you sculpted and painted, because then you can also export in a higher resolution. So this one is needed only to unwrap. So you can see right now is unwrapping. If you don't see that progress bar on the top, it means that you didn't unwrap. So make sure that that's visible and that you are actually creating the unwrap map. The unwrap map will be needed again to bake all the information that you painted and sculpted. So if I go again in texture map, you can see now I have this create feature, and then I can do new from polypaint, and that's it. This is the diffuse texture that we're gonna export. And again, this is just a demonstration, just an example. I didn't want to do anything too complex. Just check the video course for more. And then if I do clone texture, then I will be able also to export this separately, so I can save it as a diffuse map, and I can also export other type of maps. So you can export first the mesh and then the textures, and then bring everything together in Unity. So this is kind of a manual process. but you also have another tool that I'm going to show you. Now, first of all, I want to show you this one here, which is kind of the standard. And then also here in the UV map, you can change the resolution in pixels this time. So UV map textures are in pixels, 3D mesh are in polygons. And we can also go to the displacement map and create a displacement map. Now, this can be used to create more details. So you don't export each single detail from Zbrush. In terms of polygons, you can also export a low poly and export all the details in a high resolution image. So create that and clone and then export. So you can see again, this one here is a normal map. And this is specific to export three-dimensional details, really tiny details that you don't need to actually have in polygons. You don't need to have like to increase the size, the file size of the 3D model. You just can export displacement and normal. Now the other tool, which is kind of this one here, and it's pretty much the same thing. So this is going to let you export FBX. It's called FBX exporter. So you can export using that, or you can also have another option here. And this is going to export in OBJ. You can see there it's called multimap exporter. And this is to export all these different maps that are going to be automatically generated from the mesh, and together with the mesh, which is going to be in OBJ format this time. So when you're ready, you just click on create all maps, and this is going to create all the textures and also the object, the 3D mesh, in a folder that you're going to specify. So in this case, you see here I created already 3 different folders with 3 different level of subdivisions, so that I can try and test different meshes and different textures. So I'm going to close ZBrush and let's get into Unity. And again, this is the sample file, sample scene. You can press play on the top to have like the game view, and then we can start to bring in some assets. So if I go to assets, I can just select each one of these singularly, or just select all of those and do import. You can see the 3D object in there and the textures that we generated with multimap exporter from ZBrush. Now, wait, because depending on how big is the mesh, you need to wait. And there it is. You can see there that we have the 3D model, we have the mesh, we have the material, and then like the complete package. Now let's move into the working space here in Unity, in the scene, and just click and drag from the asset browser into the view, and there's the model right there. So nothing wrong with the mesh. It looks beautiful, looks nice, smooth, no problem at all. But we don't have the material. So this is again multimap exporter. So you can try also with FBX. Sometimes you can get the material, but if you don't have the material, don't worry, you can just create new materials inside Unity directly. So what I'm gonna do here is, well, you can test here. There are like different options for the materials. You can try again to embed the materials together with the mesh, but if you're not successful with that, just create here, right click, create a new material. So you can either import assets, or you can create assets from the assets menu or directly in the project assets manager there. And there's the new material. So I'm just going to click and drag the new material onto my object. And you can see now that if I change the color, it's going to be automatically previewed there in the workspace. So that's to test if we actually assign that material, and that material is fine. So instead of creating the material directly in Unity, I'm just going to select the mesh. The texture, and you can see that now it's applied on top of the material. So if you change the material, it's going to affect also the texture. And I can continue also to assign other texture. For example, here I have ambient occlusion, I have cavity textures, so I can try those on my model. So there it is, and you can also use normals and other type of texture. So this will be all for this video guide. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, subscribe to the channel to stay updated. If you want to give us a little bit of support, you can join the channel as a supporter and check our video courses, Zbrush and also Videoguide. Thanks for watching. See you in the next.